Kirk. Oh, a popular guest on the show. There he is. Hey, Mr. Kirk.
Hey.
Hey, from Washington Gun Law. All right, so, boy, you got a lot on your plate here. There's a man who's facing 2 felony charges. He's, I think he's in the old Gray Bar Hotel right now because he sent a series of emails, right? These were not written letters. He sent a series of emails or somehow he... Tweets. I'm sorry, tweets.
Yeah.
He tweeted... a whole bunch of stuff to the governor, to Bob Ferguson. What were some of those tweets that he sent to Bob that it seemed to be such a problem?
I'm coming for your lunch money. I'm going to make you cry. You're a criminal, and we're going to treat you like one. Took pictures of Governor Ferguson's front door to his personal residence, circulated that. Posted pictures of his of an AR-15, and then questioned the integrity of Governor Ferguson's security detail. Was talked to about this by the State Patrol. They kind of had a little private conversation, told them to simmer down in March of 2024, and it simmered down for a while, but then things really escalated once Bob Ferguson became governor-elect, and it ultimately resulted in him being booked on 2 felony counts and sitting in the Pierce County Jail on $200,000 bail right now.
Now, Mr. Kirk, you normally handle stories regarding gun laws and the Second Amendment and stuff like that, but why does this one sort of pique your interest?
Well, it piqued my interest for a couple of reasons. This is not the first incident of somebody reacting to bad politics in a horrible way. And it struck me because, here's an individual who may think that he and I see the world the same way, but the way that he's choosing to do this is rather than be critical of the policy and the manner in which they govern, he's making threats to obviously the governor's home. And the last time I checked, I believe Governor Ferguson has a teenage daughter. I know he's very proud of her. He posts regularly about her accomplishments as an athlete. And I just think that the families of these politicians are absolutely off limits. Doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're coming from, but the making threats to the politicians and in particular to their families is deplorable behavior and can't be tolerated.
You had said in one of your posts that you think that the lawmakers should update the statute. There are 30 different definitions when it comes to threats. What would you want them to do? Get in there and add an addendum somewhere?
The problem is that of the 2 felonies that he's been charged with, one is threats to governor and family. And that statute appears to have been drafted around 1982 with maybe a little dust up in 2011. And it clearly requires that you drop something in the mail or use the postal system to send threats to the governor or his family. So there may be a technical defense on that. As far as intimidation of a public servant, which is also a Class B felony, no, I think that statute is very all-encompassing and it encapsulates a lot of different activities. And if the allegations, and again, they are only allegations, but if the allegations were proven to be true, I think it would fall under intimidation of a public servant.
I've watched a lot of your videos there at Washington Gun Law, and you don't normally swear, but at the end of the thing... and you beeped it out. Yeah, because the point you're trying to make at the end to this guy, and it was you also did not say his name, although you have his name.
Well, it's all over every story. The article's out there. Anyone could probably Google his name in about 5 seconds.
And you're not. And unfortunately, it's not just this guy. There are other people that have the same sort of mindset. And you look directly into the camera. You dropped a little dirty word in there, but you wanted to say to this guy and to anybody else that wants to take this tact, you warn them.
Yeah, it's not the right way to do it. It demeans any message that we have. The truth of the matter is we have, I believe, at least, we have common sense. We have the Constitution on our side. We have the facts on our side. And that's what we should rely upon. And I know it can be very infuriating. And there's nothing wrong. There are times where I'm about to reply to something on social media and I sit there and I'm like, I'm going to sit on that for about 5 minutes before I hit send. And then instead of hitting send, what do? I hit delete. Sometimes that can be therapeutic, but we've got to think before we act. And this demeans the message. It threatens people that do not deserve to be threatened. And it's contrary to how our system of justice and system of political system is supposed to work in this country.
Yeah, I guess the thing is the old adage, if they go low, we go high, right? I mean, if you don't want to go back to the 1850s where you had pro-slave Democrats, burning down the houses of abolitionists.
Well, at a time when we clearly have one side of the political spectrum that is embracing and celebrating political violence, I don't believe the other side of the political spectrum should be doing the same things.
Yeah. The other story that caught your eye, which, by the way, interestingly enough, according to the New York Times, this is a little while ago, New York Times says the FBI investigation took normal bureaucratic steps and precautions when opening extraordinary sensitive inquiry into Mr. Trump's attempts to overturn the election. End quote, and pretty much end of story. But I'm talking about Arctic frost, and you won't find it anywhere. Yeah. ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, no one has talked about Arctic frost, but it's an extraordinary story.
It is an extraordinary story, and for anyone on the political left that wants to complain about potential weaponization of the government, look no further than Arctic frost, a point to where we were actually subpoenaing the phone records of, I believe it was 13 senators and 1 representative. And then the thing that really caught my attention is these articles of impeachment that Representative Brandon Gill has filed against Judge Boasberg out there in the D.C. Circuit Court. And, you know, listen, we can get into the numerical value of the votes you need, and he's probably not going to get where he needs to get with it. But what I found interesting is that Judge Boasberg had signed all of these orders that would order the cell phone companies not to disclose to the Sergeant of Arms of the U.S. Senate plus the staffs that they were requesting these records. The problem is that there is a statute, 2 United States Code 6628, specifically subsection C, that says that is absolutely positively legally prohibited to do that by any judicial order either. So knowing that Judge Boasberg's been on the bench for a while and he's abundantly familiar with federal law as a federal judge, he apparently signed orders that were in violation of federal law. That's an abuse of power, abuse of discretion, and that is grounds for impeachment under articles of impeachment. Will they get the 67 votes necessary in the Senate? No, not a chance in hell.
There were more than 400 Republicans, conservative individuals, entities that were included in the probe of Arctic frost. They went and looked at Charlie Kirk's records. They asked for those from Turning Point, as well as Republican Attorney Generals Association, political action committees. And then here's the way it was described. This is on October 30th this year.
Republicans on Capitol Hill said the Biden Justice Department went much further than previously known while investigating alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. That probe, known as Operation Arctic Frost. Senator Chuck Grassley today made public 197 subpoenas from then Special Counsel Jack Smith and his team. The subpoenas made their way to Grassley through unnamed whistleblowers. He says the subpoenas requested testimony, financial records, donor fundraising, and other communications with 430 named Republican individuals and entities. The list includes the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and daughter-in-law, Laura Trump.
Contrary to what Smith has said publicly, this was clearly a fishing expedition.
Brett, as part of his probe, several Republican senators say their phone calls were spied on and their phones were tapped.
Now, the phones weren't actually tapped, but what Smith was asking AT&T and Verizon to do, show us when the phone calls were made and who were the phone calls made to. So they were getting that. Yeah. And he told them, don't tell anybody. Don't tell Verizon, don't tell anybody that we're looking into this, and said the same thing to AT&T. AT&T looked at it, went to their lawyers and said, should we comply? And they said, no, we're not going to comply, because you can squash these things if you want. But Verizon, on the other hand, turned over all the records as Jack Smith was looking into this Arctic frost. This thing has basically been ignored. I can't find it anywhere. It's a big story.
And the one thing I would say beyond what Senator Grassley said is it wasn't a fishing expedition. This was like going out and casting a wide gill net and just seeing what you could pull in. I mean, this was amazing. I mean, you take a look at, and this is, again, starts with what? Alleged election denial. And now we have, 400 something subpoenas going out to not only just elected officials, but all sorts of organizations, everything, just throwing a gill net out there just to see what you can get.
Do you think the reason stories like this don't get any traction, like the other story that has also been, kicking around, is the auto pen and all the pardons and then all of Biden's staff that has been deposed recently? Those stories just don't go anywhere. But, Bill, they don't go anywhere because there's so much other news that's spinning at the top. You know what I mean? There's just no way everybody can consume all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's partially true, and there's also a prioritization by mainstream media as to what what should we be educating the public about. I read all 100 pages of the Biden AutoPen report. I've been thinking about doing a video on it or something like that, but it would take forever. But the first 80 pages is all about the deterioration of President Biden himself and the massive cover-up that went with it. The last 20 pages gets to the actual act of the pardon process.
Yeah, but I guess it's one of these things. Well, that's so because the speed of news today, that's so old news. Like Biden, who is that? Oh, I think he was one of our presidents, right? It's like we're moving on. We've got the Supreme Court going to rule whether or not these tariffs are legal. We're going to talk about the airports being shut down. We're going to talk about historic closing of the federal government. Those stories are at the very top. The rest of the stuff is just sort of a tributary of stories. And besides, what does it matter? He's out of office now. Who cares, right?
Well, and then the manner in which most people consume their news, they're not going to sit down and read a 100-page report, right? They want to get something in 5 to 10 seconds. Let me skim the headline, and that's the narrative, and I'll go with it.
Right.
And that's the way news is consumed nowadays, too.
Right. And then there's also the whataboutism. Well, Trump's doing this. Well, what about that? And I always think that so many of these stories are always under how the journalists cover it and the way it is consumed. It's, by any means necessary, right? That things are so bad. The ends justify the means.
Was on display last night because you saw a governor-elect in New Jersey, a governor-elect in Virginia, and a mayor-elect in New York City basically get up and say this is all about resisting Trump.
Right. Right, so you run against, and I think. Do you think some of the votes that came in here in Seattle and around the Northwest were also anti-Trump votes?
Well, I mean, if you take a look at President Trump's performance in 3 elections out here, the state is very largely anti-Trump. So I think you're going to get that organically. I think the local elections definitely demonstrated a shift in what I would see as going back in the wrong direction here in King County and Seattle.
Yeah, and I think you could point to, well, we need to build the wall higher because we've got Trump who's going to possibly come in, so let's move further and further to the left. If we move it anywhere in the direction of the right, we're moving towards Donald Trump.
Right.
Yeah.
So what aboutism?
Yep.
And that's listen, sometimes that's the only message you got when your policies are abject failures and demonstrable failures. That might be the only thing you have to talk about.
You want to get down on the record here as your predictions whether or not Bruce Harrell will win or Katie Wilson?
I think Bruce Harrell's going to win. I don't know if when they say that all these late votes come in are usually uber progressive. I actually think that those votes have a tendency to come in early. I think that he'll probably win by the margin he's at or maybe slightly more. But again, it's, that's like getting to choose between getting punched in the mouth or, kicked in the groin. So that's the options in Seattle this year.
Okay, Bill, but given the choice between the two.
Yes, given a choice, yeah. Yeah, Bruce Harrell is much more like
in the groin or the mouth, Bill. The groin or mouth is. I mean, you did like.
Bruce Harrell's more like a punch in the mouth. That one hurts for a while. The kick in the groin hurts for a lot longer. So that's more of a. Yeah.
Okay, got it. They can have long-term effects upon you. The rest of you, Dennis could take care of. All right, Mr. Kirk, appreciate it. Always your insight in what you cover and how you cover it is always something to be commended. Thank you, Mr. Kirk.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
There he goes.